The stars twinkled coldly in the endless void as Elder Tajin stood motionless before the massive observation window. His four-fingered hand pressed against the transparent barrier, watching his homeworld shrink into a mere pinpoint of light. The Araxians' silver scales had lost their usual luster, dulled by the weight of responsibility and grief that pressed down upon his shoulders. The evacuation had been brutal but organized. The Araxian people, known throughout the galaxy for their peaceful ways and healing arts, had loaded their families into every available ship. From luxury cruise vessels to cargo haulers, anything that could carry life support was now packed with refugees. Their crime, in the eyes of the mighty Galactic Concordat, had been simple. They were too peaceful, too weak to hold such resource-rich systems. They gave us 3 days. Tajin whispered to himself, his secondary hearts beating an uneven rhythm of distress. 3 days to abandon the homes we had built over 10,000 years. Behind him, the command center of the healing light hummed with quiet activity. The capital ship, once a mobile hospital bringing aid to distant worlds, now served as the flagship of their ragtag fleet. Screens displayed the status of hundreds of vessels, each carrying a fragment of their civilization into the unknown. Elder. Captain Jaiho's voice broke through Tajin's dark thoughts. The younger Araxian's scales were dull with exhaustion, his uniform wrinkled from days without rest. The last civilian transport has cleared the system boundary. All ships are accounted for. Tajin nodded slowly, his elongated head casting strange shadows in the starlight. How many made it, Captain? 8,300,042 souls. Jaiho's voice cracked slightly. We lost contact with the outer colonies. The Concordat's blockade was too tight. We couldn't reach them in time. The elder closed his inner eyelids, trying to maintain composure. Nearly 2 million of their people, trapped in the outer systems, now at the mercy of the Concordat. Their fate would likely remain unknown forever. Through the observation window, Tajin could see other ships of their fleet. The Araxian vessels were beautiful even now, organic curves and flowing lines, designed to comfort and heal rather than intimidate. Their weapon systems were primarily defensive shields, their most advanced technology focused on medical care and environmental restoration. They had never seen the need for battleships or planet crackers like the Concordat races. Begin distributing the emergency rations, Tajin ordered, finally turning away from the window. And have the medical teams start their rounds. I want particular attention paid to the children and the elderly. The command center screen showed the interior of various ships. Families huddled together in converted cargo bays, makeshift living quarters established in research labs and healing chambers. Their people were adaptable, yes, but they were also suffering. A small child caught his attention on one of the screens. She was helping an elderly male adjust his breathing apparatus, her tiny silver scales still bright with youth. Even now, their people tried to help each other. Even now, they remained true to their nature. Set course for the unexplored regions beyond the Concordat's influence, Tajin commanded. We'll need to find a new home, somewhere beyond their reach. As the fleet's engines flared to life, pushing them further into the unknown, Tajin thought about the Concordat's ultimatum. Their ambassadors had been almost apologetic. It was simply business, they said. The Araxian systems were too valuable to be left in the hands of a species that wouldn't properly exploit them or defend them with military might. The elder touched a panel, bringing up the fleet's inventory. Their ships carried the sum total of their civilization, scientific knowledge, art, literature, and most importantly, their medical technology. The Concordat had demanded they leave all technology behind, but Tajin had refused that final indignity. If they were to survive as a people, they needed to keep their identity. Elder, Jaiho spoke again, his voice hesitant. The children in Hold 3 are asking for stories. Would you? Tajin's scales brightened slightly. Even in exile, some traditions must continue. Of course, Captain. Have them gather in the main recreation area. They should know why we choose peace even now, especially now. As he made his way through the corridors of the healing light, Ta Jin saw his people helping each other, sharing food, comforting the grieving. Their technology might focus on healing, their nature might be peaceful, but they were far from weak. The Concordat would learn that someday. For now, though, they needed to survive. They needed to find a new home, somewhere they could rebuild, somewhere their children could grow up without fear, where their peaceful ways would be seen as strength rather than weakness. The void of space stretched endlessly before their fleet, full of both danger and possibility. Somewhere out there, Tai Jin thought, there must be others who understood that there were many kinds of strength. They just had to find them. Science Officer Sun Mi stared at her sensor readings for the third time, her silver scales flickering with cautious excitement. The blue-green planet hanging in space before their fleet looked remarkably like their lost homeworld, down to the white wisps of clouds and vast oceans. After 6 months of wandering through unknown space, finding any habitable world was significant. Another false hope, she muttered, adjusting her instruments. Their fleet had visited 12 potentially habitable worlds so far. All had proven either too hostile or already claimed by aggressive species who had driven them away. The Araxian refugees couldn't take another disappointment. But as their ships drew closer to the third planet of this yellow star, Sun Mi's instruments detected something that made all 4 of her hearts skip a beat. Radio waves. Primitive, yes, but unmistakable. And there, in orbit around the planet, crude satellites and what appeared to be a small space station. Elder Ta Jin, she called over the ship's communication system, trying to keep her voice steady. I believe you should see this. The elder arrived quickly, his worn face showing the strain of leading their people through their exodus. Sun Mi pointed to her displays, explaining what she had found. They appear to be on the cusp of true space travel, she explained. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but they're advancing rapidly. And look at these atmospheric readings. They're terraforming their own world, though not very efficiently. Commander Ha-Won joined them, her military training evident in her rigid posture. As head of their first contact protocols, she had seen too many encounters go wrong. We should proceed with extreme caution. Remember what happened in the Proxima system? They all remembered. That encounter had cost them 3 ships and hundreds of lives when the local species had attacked without warning. Since then, they had approached each new civilization with increasing wariness. These readings are fascinating, Sun Mi continued, bringing up more data. They're broadcasting thousands of different signals. Entertainment, news, personal communications. They seem to be a highly social species. Elder Ta Jin studied the data carefully. What do we know about their conflicts? They war among themselves, Ha-Won reported grimly. But their broadcasts also show cooperation, art, music. They appear to be capable of both great violence and great kindness. The decision to make contact wasn't taken lightly. The refugee fleet held the last remnants of Araxian civilization. They couldn't risk everything on another hostile encounter. But their supplies were running low, and they needed a safe harbor. Prepare a first contact package, Elder Ta Jin finally ordered. But position the fleet behind their moon. If they prove hostile, we can use its mass to cover our retreat. The next 12 hours were filled with careful preparation. Sun Mi worked with the communication team to translate their message into the planet's most common languages. They chose to approach openly, transmitting their peaceful intentions on frequencies they knew the humans could detect. The response came faster than anyone expected. Instead of panic or aggression, the planet's nations quickly organized a unified response team. Their primitive satellites turned to observe the Araxian fleet, but no weapons were detected powering up. They're requesting visual communication, Sun Mi announced, her scales brightening with surprise. And they're sending us landing coordinates. It's a facility in a place they call Geneva. The landing party was chosen carefully. Elder Ta Jin would lead, with Sun Mi to handle scientific matters and Commander Hawan for security. Their shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, all of them tense with memory of past rejections. The landing facility was surrounded by human security forces, but their weapons remained lowered. A small group of humans waited on the landing pad, dressed in formal clothing. Their leader stepped forward as the Araxians emerged from their shuttle. "I am Dr. Lee," the human said through a hastily prepared translator. Then, looking at their worn appearance and the obvious signs of long space travel, he added words that would be recorded in both species' histories. "You look like you could use a friend." Sun Mi felt her scales ripple with emotion. After months of rejection and fear, after losing their homes and watching their people suffer, these simple words carried more meaning than any formal diplomatic speech could have. Elder Ta Jin bowed in the traditional Araxian greeting. "We are refugees," he said simply. "Our civilization was peaceful, too peaceful, according to those who took our worlds from us. We seek only a safe place to rest and rebuild." Dr. Lee nodded, his expression showing understanding rather than fear or disgust. "Earth has known refugees throughout its history. We have learned that those who come seeking peace often have the most to offer." As the first formal discussions began, Sun Mi couldn't help but notice how different this was from their other encounters. The humans were curious, asking questions about Araxian culture and technology, but also offering information about themselves freely. Perhaps, she thought, watching humans and Araxians cautiously beginning to interact, we have finally found not just a refuge, but a home. For the first time since they had fled their worlds, hope began to bloom in all four of her hearts. Do Hyun's silver scales shimmered with excitement as he watched the human engineer disassemble one of their healing units. In just 3 weeks, these remarkable beings had not only understood their technology, but had begun suggesting improvements that no Araxian had considered in centuries. "What if we reversed the polarity of the quantum field here?" Sarah Chen, the human engineer, pointed to a complex array of crystal matrices. "It would increase efficiency by at least 30%. Do Hyun blinked all four of his eyes in succession, a gesture of amazement that made his human colleagues smile. They had grown used to Araxian expressions over the past months. But that would... He paused, running calculations through his mind. "That would actually work. How did you think of that?" "Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that seem wrong at first," Sarah replied, already making the modifications. The cultural exchange facility in New Stool buzzed with similar scenes of cooperation, humans and Araxians working together, learning from each other. In the recreation area, Kita watched human and Araxian children playing together. The young humans had quickly adapted to their new friends' silver-scaled appearance, treating the differences as simply another fascinating aspect of their playmates. A young Araxian girl was teaching a group of human children the traditional dance of seasons, their laughter echoing through the halls. "It's remarkable how quickly they adapt," Kita commented to Dr. Park, his human counterpart in cultural affairs. "Our children were traumatized by the Exodus, but here, playing with human children, they seem to be healing." Dr. Park nodded, watching as a human boy carefully helped his Araxian friend with a puzzle. Children have a way of seeing past differences that adults sometimes struggle with. They don't care about different biologies or cultural backgrounds. They just want to play. In the technology wing, Do Hyun's team had made another breakthrough. The humans' suggestion to combine their healing technology with Earth's more robust power systems had yielded unexpected results. Their medical units now worked faster and more efficiently than ever before. "It's like they see solutions where we see impossibilities," Do Hyun explained to Elder Ta Jin during the evening report. "They take our carefully refined systems and just add chaos. But somehow, it works better." The Cultural Exchange Center had become more than just a facility. It was a symbol of hope. In the art wing, human artists worked alongside Araxian creators, blending their styles in new and beautiful ways. The humans' physical art complemented the Araxians' harmonic expressions, creating pieces that spoke to both species. Kaita found himself particularly moved by human music. While Araxian music was based on pure harmonics and mathematical precision, human music contained something else: emotion, raw and powerful. He often spent hours in the music room, listening to everything from classical symphonies to modern pop songs. "Your music is imperfect," he told a human composer one day. "But that's what makes it beautiful. It speaks to something beyond mathematics." The integration extended to every aspect of life. Human doctors worked with Araxian healers, combining their different approaches to medicine. Earth's more aggressive treatment methods, balanced with Araxian's subtle healing techniques, created revolutionary new treatments. In the evening, as the facility's lights dimmed to accommodate both species' daily cycles, Du Hyun stood at a window overlooking the city. New Seoul had changed since the Araxians' arrival, with new structures incorporating both human and Araxian architectural styles rising among the traditional buildings. "We were so afraid," he said softly to Sarah, who had joined him at the window. "After being rejected by so many worlds, we expected the worst. Instead, we found people who see our differences as strengths to be combined rather than weaknesses to be feared." A group of children ran past them, human and Araxian mixed together in some game they had invented. Their shouts and laughter mixed in the air, a perfect symbol of the unlikely friendship between their species. In the research lab, another team had just made a breakthrough in combining human-computer technology with Araxian organic systems. The resulting hybrid would revolutionize both species' approach to data processing. "It's because you think differently," Sarah explained, watching the city lights twinkle. "You see patterns where we see chaos, and we see possibilities where you see limitations. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone." Do Hyun's scales flickered in agreement, a gesture he knew Sarah had learned to read. Perhaps this was the greatest discovery of all, not the technological advances or medical breakthroughs, but the simple fact that two very different species could learn to understand and complement each other so perfectly. As night fell over New Seoul, the Cultural Exchange Center continued its work. In labs and classrooms, art studios and playrooms, humans and Araxians worked together, each learning from the other, each growing stronger through their differences. It was more than just survival now. It was the beginning of something entirely new, a fusion of two civilizations that promised to be greater than the sum of its parts. The holographic message flickered to life in the United Nations chamber on what had started as an ordinary Tuesday morning. Ambassador Min's hands tightened on the edge of her desk as the massive figure of the Concordat representative materialized, its multifaceted eyes gleaming with barely concealed contempt. Hyun-soo, the Araxian defense coordinator, felt all four of his hearts skip a beat as the alien diplomat began to speak. The message was clear and brutal in its simplicity. Earth was to surrender all Araxian refugees within 7 planetary rotations, or face the consequences. "Your primitive world has no concept of galactic politics," the Concordat representative's translated voice boomed through the chamber. "The Araxians are declared non-viable as a sovereign species. Their continued existence threatens the stability of established trade routes and resource distribution networks." The chamber erupted in murmurs as the humans processed this cold calculation of an entire species' worth. Ambassador Min stood slowly, her face set in determined lines. "And if we refuse?" The Concordat representative's mouthparts clicked in what might have been amusement. "Your world has barely achieved spaceflight. You have no planetary defense systems worthy of note. The Concordat's patience with your interference is at an end." In the observation gallery, Hyun-soo watched the human leaders' reactions carefully. He had learned to read their expressions over the past months, but now he saw something new, not fear, but anger, deep, quiet anger. The emergency session that followed lasted through the night. Representatives from every Earth nation spoke, their words translated for the Araxian observers. What amazed Hyun-soo wasn't just their unity, but their reasoning. "The Araxians have shared their medical technology freely," the Japanese representative pointed out. Their healing centers have saved thousands of lives already. Their environmental restoration techniques are helping us repair centuries of damage to our planet," added the Brazilian delegate. "They ask nothing in return except a place to live in peace." The Chinese representative stood next, her voice firm. "We have seen what the Araxians can do when they work together with humans. They make us better, and we make them stronger. This is not a weakness. This is the future." Ambassador Min coordinated the responses, working tirelessly to forge a unified human position. The Araxian observers watched in amazement as a species known for its internal conflicts came together with surprising speed and determination. "We should evacuate," Elder Ta Jin suggested quietly to the human leadership. "We cannot ask your world to face destruction for our sake. We have already lost one home. We cannot bear the responsibility for you losing yours." The Secretary General's response was immediate and firm. "Earth will not surrender its friends to face genocide. We do not abandon those who have placed their trust in us." Hyun-Soo felt moisture on his scales. Tears, a response his species rarely experienced. In all their wandering, in all their pleas for help from supposedly more advanced civilizations, they had never encountered such loyalty. The final resolution was drafted as dawn broke over New York. Earth's response to the Concordat was simple. No, they would not surrender the Araxians. They would not bow to threats. They would stand with their allies, whatever the cost. "You realize this means war," the European Union representative said quietly during the final discussions. "We're choosing to fight an advanced galactic power. We're choosing to do what's right," Ambassador Min replied. "Besides, they don't understand what humans and Araxians can achieve together. They think we're weak because we choose peace when possible. They're about to learn how wrong they are." As the sun rose over the UN building, plans were already being made. Human military commanders worked with Araxian technical experts, combining Earth's defensive strategies with Araxian technology. Scientists from both species began adapting healing technology for defensive purposes. "We never wanted to turn our healing arts to warfare," Hyun-Soo told a human general. "But if we must fight, we will fight to protect both our peoples." The humans' response was characteristic of their species. Sometimes the best defense is being willing to stand up for what's right, no matter the odds. As the day ended, Ambassador Min found Hyun-Soo standing at a window, watching the sunset. "Your people risked everything to help us," he said quietly. "Why?" She smiled. A gesture he had learned meant both warmth and determination. "Because that's what friends do. Because every time we work together, we discover something new. Because you trusted us when you had no reason to trust anyone." The Concordat's threat hung over Earth like a storm cloud, but something unexpected had happened. Instead of creating fear and division, it had united humans and Araxians more strongly than ever. In labs and factories across the planet, the two species worked together, preparing for what was to come. As night fell, Hyun-Soo realized that perhaps this was what the Concordat feared most, not weapons or technology, but the power of two very different species choosing to stand together, choosing to be stronger together than they ever could be apart. The coming days would test them all, but for the first time since the Araxians had fled their home, they felt something they had almost forgotten: hope, not just for survival, but for a future worth fighting for. Jin-Woo stood in the Lunar Defense Facility's main control room, watching as another test of the modified healing shield rippled across the observation dome. The soft blue glow of the energy field pulsed like a living thing, adapting and repairing itself, just as the original Araxian medical technology had once healed damaged cells. "It's beautiful," commented his Araxian partner, Neri, her silver scales reflecting the shield's light. "We never imagined our healing arts could be used this way." The breakthrough had come 3 weeks ago, during a late-night brainstorming session. Jin-Woo had been studying the way Araxian medical technology repaired damaged tissue at the cellular level when the idea struck him. If they could program energy fields to repair themselves the same way living cells did, they might create an almost impenetrable defense system. Run the impact test again, Jinwoo called to the testing team. A series of high-energy pulses struck the shield. Instead of simply absorbing or deflecting the impacts, the shield tissue actually regenerated, growing stronger at the points of contact. Up in Earth orbit, Youngji was conducting another kind of test. The combined human-Araxian defense fleet moved through space in complex patterns, their ships dancing around each other with increasing confidence. Earth's primitive satellites had been transformed into sophisticated defensive platforms, bristling with hybrid technology. Alpha Squadron, execute Pattern Delta, Youngji commanded. She watched as human pilots, flying ships enhanced with Araxian technology, performed maneuvers that would have been impossible just months ago. The Araxian ships, now equipped with human-designed tactical systems, moved in perfect coordination with their Earth counterparts. Back on the moon, Jinwoo's team prepared for their most ambitious test yet. They had scaled up the healing shield technology to cover the entire lunar base. If it worked, they could potentially extend the same protection to Earth itself. Power systems at maximum, Neri reported, her fingers dancing over the control panels. Shield matrix stable, beginning full-scale deployment. The shield expanded outward from the lunar facility, its living energy field adapting to the contours of the landscape. As it grew, it began to develop its own patterns, responding to the local environment, just as it would respond to a patient's needs in its original medical form. Youngji's voice came through the communication system. Lunar Base, this is Fleet Command. We're ready to begin the combined testing sequence. Jinwoo nodded to his team. This would be the first full-scale test of their integrated defense systems. The fleet would simulate an attack while the lunar shield attempted to protect not just itself, but the vital facilities beneath it. The simulated battle began. Training drones, programmed with what they knew of Concordat attack patterns, launched their assault. The shield responded instantly, thickening where impacts were strongest, regenerating faster than it could be damaged. Look at those adaptation rates, Neri exclaimed, her scales flickering with excitement. The shield is learning, just like living tissue learns to resist infection. In orbit, Youngji watched as her fleet moved to support the lunar defenses. Human tactical innovations, combined with Araxian technical precision, created battle patterns that would have been impossible for either species alone. Who would have thought, she mused to her Araxian second-in-command, that a species dedicated to healing could help us revolutionize defense? The test continued for hours, each successful maneuver adding to their confidence. The shield not only held but grew stronger. The fleet not only defended but found new ways to work together. What had started as a desperate collaboration was becoming something more, a true synthesis of two species' strengths. Final phase, Jinwoo announced. Full power to the shield matrix. Let's see what this system can really do. The shield blazed to life with renewed energy, its living lattice now extending far above the lunar surface. In orbit, Youngji's fleet moved into their final defensive formation, their hybrid weapons systems charged and ready. As the test concluded, the control room erupted in cheers, human and Araxian voices mixing together in celebration. They had done more than create a defense system. They had proven that their partnership could achieve things neither species could have managed alone. The Concordat thinks we're weak because we prefer peace, Neri said quietly to Jinwoo as they reviewed the test data. They don't understand that choosing peace is different from being unable to fight. Jinwoo nodded, watching as the shield slowly powered down, its living energy field settling into a steady protective glow around the base. Sometimes the best defenders are those who understand what they're fighting to protect. In orbit, Youngji concluded the day's exercises, proud of how her combined fleet had performed. As the ships moved back to their patrol positions, she couldn't help but feel a surge of confidence. They were ready, not just to fight, but to protect something worth fighting for. The lunar facility's lights dimmed as the day shift ended, but the shield continued its quiet vigil, a testament to what could be achieved when two species chose to stand together. The Concordat was coming, yes, but they would find something they hadn't expected. Two peoples united not by fear, but by friendship, innovation, and the determination to protect their shared home. Admiral Yu Jin stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Command vessel Unity, watching as the first Concordat ships emerged from hyperspace. The massive alien vessels appeared like dark clouds against the stars, their weapon systems already charging. "All defense platforms report ready," announced her second-in-command, Captain Hyun-soo. The Araxians' silver scales reflected the red alert lights as he coordinated with their combined fleet, healing shields at maximum power. The Concordat's initial transmission was predictably arrogant. "Primitive species, you have ignored our warnings. Surrender the Araxian refugees immediately, or face annihilation." Yu Jin's response was calm but firm. "This is Admiral Yu Jin of the Earth Defense Force. We reject your demands. The Araxians are under our protection." The first attack came exactly as their simulations had predicted. The Concordat ships launched a massive energy barrage, expecting to overwhelm Earth's defenses in seconds. Instead, their weapons met the newly developed healing shields. "Shield network holding," reported Jinwoo from the lunar base. "The regeneration rate is exceeding damage, just like we planned." The Concordat commander's voice betrayed its first note of uncertainty. "Impossible. Your defensive technology is listed as primitive. You cannot have developed this level of protection." Yu Jin allowed herself a small smile. "You're right. We didn't develop it alone. Attack pattern Alpha. Execute now." The combined Earth-Araxian fleet moved with perfect coordination. Human warships, enhanced with Araxian technology, darted between the massive Concordat vessels. Their smaller size, once a weakness, now became an advantage as they exploited gaps in the enemy's defenses. "Squadron 3, target their sensor arrays," Yu Jin commanded. "Squadron 5, prepare the adapted healing pulse." The healing pulse had been another innovation. Araxian medical technology reversed to disrupt enemy ship systems instead of repairing them. The Concordat vessels, for all their power, had no defense against weapons based on healing technology. The battle raged across the Earth-Moon system. The Concordat's superior numbers meant nothing against defenses that grew stronger with each attack and weapons they had never encountered before. Human creativity combined with Araxian precision created battle strategies that left the invaders confused and vulnerable. "They're adjusting their attack pattern," Hyun-soo warned as the second day of battle began. "Bringing in their heavy carriers." Yu Jin nodded. "Just as we expected. Deploy the drone swarms." Thousands of small drones, built with hybrid technology, swarmed out from hidden bases on the lunar surface. Each carried a miniature version of the healing pulse, targeting the Concordat ship's vulnerable points with surgical precision. The third day brought the turning point. The Concordat fleet, frustrated by their lack of progress, attempted to concentrate their fire on a single point in Earth's defenses. It was exactly what Yu Jin had been waiting for. "All ships, execute Maneuver Omega," she ordered. The combined fleet moved as one, encircling the concentrated Concordat forces. The healing shields, now evolved far beyond their original design, closed in like a living net. "Your strategies are flawed," the Concordat commander transmitted, anger clear in its voice. "You protect those who are too weak to fight, yet you dare to challenge us." "You still don't understand," Yu Jin replied. "Strength isn't just about the ability to destroy. Sometimes it's about the wisdom to heal, the courage to protect, and the will to stand together." The final hours of battle demonstrated this truth. Human determination and tactical innovation, combined with Araxian technology and precision, proved an unbeatable combination. The Concordat fleet, for the first time in its history, was forced to retreat. As the last enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace, a cheer went up across the combined fleet. Human and Araxian voices joined together in celebration, but Yu Jin kept her focus on the tactical display. "Damage report," she ordered. "Minimal losses," Hyun-soo reported, his scales bright with pride. The healing shields performed beyond expectations. Our casualties are less than 2%. Yujin finally allowed herself to relax slightly. They had done more than just defend Earth. They had proven that two very different species could become stronger together than either was alone. "Send word to all ships," she commanded. "Well done, everyone. But stay alert. I doubt the Concordat will accept this defeat easily." As the fleet began its recovery operations, Yujin watched Earth rotating peacefully below. The planet showed no signs of the massive battle that had just been fought in its defense. Perhaps that was fitting. They had protected their home not through superior destruction, but through the unexpected combination of healing and innovation. The Concordat had come expecting an easy victory over a primitive world harboring refugees. They had found instead something they had never encountered before. Two species united not by fear or power, but by friendship and the determination to protect each other. Elder Tajin watched the sunrise over Earth from the observation deck of the Unity Station, the same spot where he had once waited in fear for the Concordat fleet to arrive. Now, 1 year after their victory, the view filled him with hope instead of dread. His silver scales shimmered in the morning light as he observed the massive construction project taking shape below. The Pacific Sanctuary Zone stretched across what had once been empty ocean, a marvel of combined human and Araxian engineering. Floating cities rose from the waves, their architecture blending the flowing lines of Araxian design with the bold functionality of human construction. Gardens and parks dotted the structures, bringing life to the metal and crystal expanses. "The first residents move in next week," Changmin said, joining him at the window. The human project director had worked tirelessly to make this dream a reality. 2,000 families, half human, half Araxian. The waiting list is already 10 times that number. Taijin nodded, remembering how far they had come. Just over a year ago, his people had been refugees, desperately searching for a place to call home. Now they were partners in building something entirely new. The inauguration ceremony was scheduled for noon. As Tajin prepared his speech, he could see ships arriving from around the world, carrying delegates and visitors eager to witness this historic moment. The defensive shield network, still maintained as a precaution, shimmered faintly in the upper atmosphere, a reminder of how they had earned this peace. The latest survey results came in, Changmin mentioned, reviewing his datapad. 98% of Araxian refugees have chosen to stay on Earth, even though we could now build ships to seek a new homeworld. They say they found their home. The ceremony began under clear skies. Human and Araxian children performed a joint musical piece, blending Earth's instruments with Araxian harmonic technology. The sound echoed across the water, a perfect symbol of what their peoples had achieved together. 1 year ago, Tajin began his address, looking out at the mixed crowd. "We were a homeless people, cast out by those who saw our peaceful nature as weakness. Today, we stand here not as refugees, but as family." The applause that followed came from both human and Araxian hands. In the front row, Admiral Yujin sat beside the UN Secretary General, both wearing medals commemorating the defense of Earth. Behind them, scientists and engineers from both species who had worked together to make this city possible watched with pride. "The Concordat thought they were punishing us by taking our worlds," Tajin continued. "Instead, they gave us a gift we never expected. The chance to find true allies, to discover that strength comes in many forms." Changmin stepped forward to join him at the podium. Together, they activated the city's main power systems. The structures lit up from within, their hybrid technology coming to life. Gardens bloomed instantly thanks to accelerated growth techniques, turning steel and glass into a living, breathing community. "This is more than just a city," Changmin added. "This is a promise to the galaxy, a promise that there is another way, that peace and progress can coexist, that different species can build something greater than the sum of their parts." As if to emphasize his words, a group of children ran past the podium, playing some new game they had invented that combined human sports with Araxian movement patterns. Their laughter carried across the water, drawing smiles from the assembled dignitaries. The ceremony concluded with the opening of the city's main gates. The first residents would begin moving in immediately, eager to be part of this historic experiment. Scientists, artists, teachers, and families from both species would live and work together, continuing the partnership that had begun in crisis and blossomed into something remarkable. Jin returned to the observation deck that evening, watching lights come on across the new city. Supply ships moved steadily between the surface and orbital stations, carrying materials for the next phase of construction. Already, other nations were requesting permission to build similar joint communities. "Did you ever imagine this?" Chung Min asked, joining him for a final look at their creation. "When you first fled the Concordat, did you think you'd find something like this?" Jin's scales flickered with emotion. "We hoped to find sanctuary. Instead, we found a new future. Not just for our people, but for humanity as well. And perhaps someday for the entire galaxy." As night fell over the Pacific Sanctuary Zone, its lights rivaled the stars above. Somewhere out there, the Concordat was surely watching, perhaps finally beginning to understand what they had failed to see before. That true strength often comes not from weapons or power, but from the simple willingness to help others, to stand together, to build something new. The galaxy would never be quite the same, and for the first time in a very long while, that change was for the better.